Was that powerful or what? Yeah. That was unbelievable. I'm Don Huffines, and hello, Patriots. Hello, Patriots. Well, let's save the applause. I'm going to introduce right here the man that's responsible for the incredible interview. I mean, what incredible detail. It's such knowledge on this important issue. And Michael Connett, come on down. Come on down here. He's right here in person. Have a seat, Michael. As y'all probably know, Michael's a very well-respected attorney. He grew up in upstate New York, and way upstate New York, I think. Yeah. And he lives in New Hampshire, and he came all the way down here for this event. And he knows Regina very well, and Serena, and he's helped out Regina over the years to combat Dallas City Council pouring $1 million worth of fluoride in our water every year. It's amazing. Well, Michael's got a very well-respected law firm now, and it's a little different than what was on the video. I think you're in a different firm. They have about eight offices around the country, and he's certainly familiar with FOIA requests. I imagine you've done hundreds of those and all the other issues, as you could see from the video. But for me, I'm Don Huffines, and this has been an issue for me for a couple of decades, and I've been barking about it for a long time. I was in the Texas Senate from 14 to 18, and I brought the issue up down there to my colleagues, Republican colleagues, and they really thought I was crazy and the bill wouldn't go anywhere, so I didn't even file it. But we did work with the Republican convention over the years at the state party convention to get it on the platform. I just find it amazing that people, even if you didn't think fluoride was a problem, the fact that the government is sticking it in your water and medicating you unbeknownst to you is just bizarre. I just find that just absolutely bizarre. And I tell everybody this, and I've told everybody this over the years, you don't just have the authority to question government. You have an obligation to question government. That's the job of you as a patriot, as a citizen of the United States. And what this is all about, this is really all about catching them at a 70-year-old lie. A 70-year-old lie, lying to everyone, because they know if you can convince, if they have to go and admit that they were deceitful, intentional deceitful, and have caused incredible harm to thousands of Americans, if not millions of Americans, imagine what else they're going to have to admit. I mean, really. I mean, I thought one thing that the Wuhan virus really showed us was, who in the world would believe WHO or any other health organizations? And now, what about our foreign policy? It goes so deep. It's much deeper than we realize how much the governments have lied to us about almost everything in our life. And whether it's the foreign policy, how much do we hate this country or that country, how much money's being made, whether it's the seed oils, Crisco and flaxseed oil and everything else we've been subjected to by big businesses teaming up with the government. But anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox here. And let's talk to the man that knows it all. And we're here for Q&A, and he's going to give an opening statement or whatever he wants to say. And he's going to answer your questions, and I'll moderate it if that's possible. Well, Michael, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And, you know, as I told Regina, you can't say no to Regina. Her enthusiasm is infectious. She called me. I haven't done many of these events, but when Regina presented to me, I said, I can't say no to Regina. So I'll start here, and I really want to answer people's questions. tonight, but I'll start here with this notion of informed consent, okay? Because that's ultimately, and I think you'll see obviously the overlap between some of the vaccine-related issues and fluoride on this front. Informed consent is the right that all of us have. Fundamentally, all of us have the right to informed consent when it comes to medical treatment. Informed consent has two components to it. It has the consent component. You have the right to choose what medicines you're going to take. That's your right. No one else's right. It's your right. But there's also the informed component. You have a right to receive the information about the medicine, not just the benefits, but the potential risks. And this documentary here is really focusing on how the information that would permit us to make informed decisions about if and how we want to use fluoride was taken away from us. It was taken away from us. Because ultimately, even people who have had the opportunity to vote on whether they want to add fluoride chemicals to their drinking water, which happens in referendum across the country, even people who have had that right ultimately have not truly had the right to informed consent. Because we've never really been given, we've never been respected enough by government authorities to consider the full range of available information on this issue. We're not respected enough to be given that information. Instead, we're giving prepackaged propaganda, basically, right? That's what they think we can handle. But don't get into the more complex or more challenging, more troubling facts of the fluoride issue. And I'm going to, one more point I'd like to make, and then I'd really like to answer some questions. Going to this issue of informed consent. You saw here in this film Harold Hodge, who was this Manhattan Project scientist, one of the major proponents of water fluoridation for decades in this country. Very significant figure. Harold Hodge, as you saw, he found in his government studies in the 1940s on behalf of the Atomic Energy Commission, he found that people with kidney disease can't excrete fluoride very well, so they build it up in their body. You saw that, right? But I want to tell you one of the consequences of that information not being shared with the public. One of the consequences. It's a little known fact about the history of water fluoridation. That is, some of you in the audience may know people who are on dialysis. Well, because this information is not shared with the public, dialysis centers did not filter fluoride out of the dialysis in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And then guess what? Scientists started to see that there was this painful, crippling bone disease that dialysis patients were suffering. And they were trying to figure out what was the cause. And they did study after study, and then they found in the 1970s that fluoridated water in the dialysis is causing a crippling bone disease. And that is why dialysis centers now filter fluoride out of the dialysis. But it took 3 decades. 3 decades for that to happen. So how many dialysis patients were being poisoned with this in dialysis? And what does it come down to? Informed consent. They did not share that information. And so dialysis centers had no reason to think that this is something you should filter out of the dialysis. And so that just goes again to the importance of transparency. Allow the public to know what you know. Okay? If you're the government and you're studying this, allow us to know what you know. Don't hide it from us, because if you hide it from us, you deprive us of our right to informed consent.
We got quite a few hands up. I guess my job's to call, you can call on people too. But that fella right there with the glasses, he had his hand up first. Or wait, yep, go ahead. Got a hard hat on, he's ready.
I'm from the water utilities, so I know what goes in the water, the fluoridated. But my question is, with dialysis, have fatalities occurred from dialysis before fluoride was removed?
There have been poisonings in dialysis centers, notably in 1993 in Chicago. There was, and then also in Annapolis, Maryland, 2 incidents where dialysis patients were killed, died, because the dialysis did not filter out the fluoride, and then there was an accident leading to higher fluoride levels, and the dialysis patient died. And thankfully, it hasn't been a common experience, but it's the most extreme form of toxicity for dialysis patients. The bone disease was a more chronic and more common effect.
Thank you.
Back row, back up there, the back row. Yes.
Hello, great movie, concise and great explanations. My question is if to remove fluoride or any other chemicals within the water, is that a state issue, a local issue, county, city? Who would a constituent need to speak to get it removed?
It's a great question. It varies in every state. So unfortunately, there are maybe 20 or so states that have statewide mandates, meaning you do not have the right to make any decision with respect to fluoridation in your community. It's all at the state level. California, Illinois, a number of states have that, okay? But most states, it is a local decision at the city or county level, and that's one of the great things about this fluoride issue, because it's one of those issues where we citizens can have an impact. It's harder in the city, as Regina knows, it's harder in big cities because you have more gatekeepers, it's harder, okay? But we see across this country hundreds upon hundreds of communities that have successfully organized to keep fluoride out of the water or to take it out. So it is one of those things where there is an ability for local communities to affect change.
I would tell everybody in DFW that each city's different. Highland Park, University Park, no fluoride. Other cities, no fluoride. Some have different amounts, some have more than others. So you really need to pay attention to your water department to find out how much they're putting into your water. Some of it's naturally occurring, of course, so it could be if they have well water, you're going to have a little bit of fluoride in there anyway. But it's how much they're spending and how much they're putting in to potentially poison you. Let's see, this lady right here has a question in red. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Get the microphone, Liz.
Need a mic. Here's coming right behind you.
I have a very special request. I have a book signed by your dad. I would like your signature.
I'd be happy to, thank you.
Nice, that's sweet. Right. I guess people really wrote in a lot of questions here. This is fantastic. What an engaged audience. Okay, this lady right over here in the aisle. I'm going to do a lottery. Maybe I can make some money out of this.
This one right here?
Yes, sir.
Incredible movie, incredibly informative. Thank you so much. I'm in the medical field, and this is horrifying and sickening, and we've seen this with COVID. Question for you. The fundamental issue is this lack of independence on these institutions like the TDC. You showed that graph. How do we fundamentally attack this problem where the government is using national security or some kind of other excuse for secrecy all along the way with COVID and with this? How do we attack this as a people to be able to create no conflict of interest and oversight?
It's a good question, and it's obviously a challenging one. First off, thank God for the Freedom of Information Act. One of the most powerful tools for citizens to understand what their government is doing, and thank God we have it. Because that's the first most critical step. They should not have the right to operate in secret. Amen. Because when they operate in secret, bad things happen, right? So the most important thing is we need the disinfectant of sunlight over these agencies. They don't get to just play with their partners, their private partners, okay? Just like you saw in this film. Who is the CDC talking with during this? They're not talking to us. They're not talking to people in the public. They're talking to their lobbyist friends, right? So the most critical thing is transparency and finding as many possible ways, and to go beyond FOIA, and I haven't thought this through, but we need radical transparency. Radical transparency. That would be the first thing I would say, and maybe I'll keep my answer to that, and that's going to help understand who are the players. And so we need that. We need transparency.
That's right.
Okay, you're on the left, right, yes, sir, right there.
Okay, why is the government always trying to kill us?
Can you repeat the question? Repeat the question.
The question is, why is the government always trying to kill us? I don't know.
So I understand the frustration that people have when you look across multiple issues and you see a failure by government agencies to be upfront and honest, right? That always creates suspicion, right? Mm-hmm. So people say, well, people are they're not trusting these. There are people who are concerned by the fact that the public does not trust these institutions. My response to that is, the way you deal with that is make these institutions that we can trust.
Amen.
It's their fault that people don't trust them anymore. Don't blame people for not trusting them when they have lied to us and they failed to be honest with us. So I'll answer your question that way. I understand why people are frustrated with these agencies, and the way the way to deal with that is be honest. Be honest.
I would just add a little bit. It might be a little, I'm not saying it is or isn't, but there is a possibility it's a little more nefarious than just that. This could be, there's groups of people in the world today that think humans are parasites to their God, which is the earth. And that we don't really have, they just don't have the compassion or anything for human life that normal people would have. And this is not recent. This is not just with the Democrat Party recently. This has been going on for decades. So I hope it's not nefarious like that, but there's a lot of that unfortunately is probably true.
We got a question.
You got a question up there. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So how many times is it going to take us to go to our councils and things like that to get it reversed? I live in the North Texas Municipal Water District, and there's 13 member cities, but I live in a customer city. So on their website it says you can ask us to remove fluoride, but you have to live in Allen, Farmersville, Forney, Frisco, Garland, McKinney, Mesquite, Plano, Princeton, Richmond, Rockwall, Roy City, or Wiley. I don't live in any of those cities. And so, at some point, a couple years ago, I was trying to say, hey, if you live in this city, could we write to them and say, get the fluoride out? And it didn't go anywhere. But I don't even live in that member city. So, and that's 1.7 million North Texans. My son even did a PSA back in second grade. So about, it's on YouTube, like, you need to filter your water, just in general. Filter it all. Do not give it to your pets. Do not drink tap water. You are being affected. And it's not just the fluoride, it's other things as well. So how many times is it going to take, or how many letters, or how do we do this, especially when these cities, this one is corrupt. Oh, it's so corrupt.
So it's really, there's no one-size-fits-all approach, right? Every community you're gonna find, there's a creativity component, how citizens can work together to raise awareness and then to affect change in their community. And it's gonna be a lot of outreach, a lot of networking. It's not easy, but, and I had to say, I'm not the best person to ask on that. It's not my forte, okay? I recognize it's not one of my strengths how to do that, because it is challenging. But people have done it, Many communities across the country have done it. And it feels really good when you do it, right? When you're in that town council and then the vote comes down 4-1 to end this policy. This happened in my town in Canton, New York in the 1990s. It feels really good because that chemical is now removed from the water, right? So I wish I had a better answer for you. I would say one thing about the lawsuit that we've been working on for the past 8 years, okay? If we win, the court will make a finding that water fluoridation presents an unreasonable risk to human health. And what that triggers is the EPA becomes statutorily bound, mandated under law to eliminate the risk. EPA has to initiate rulemaking proceedings where they will announce how are we going to eliminate the risk posed by adding fluoride chemicals to drinking water. So let me think about this. Risk from adding chemicals to drinking water. How might we eliminate that risk?
Yes, ma'am.
You got a question over there.
I'll repeat it so you don't have to get your exercise in there. Okay, yes, go ahead.
It's my understanding the first time that fluoride was added to drinking water was in Nazi Germany to make the Jews more docile and easily controlled. And then it was added here in 1944, I believe, according to the film, if I got that right. And it mentioned that Harold Hodges was chairman of the Nuremberg Committee. Can you connect all that?
So this is a common...
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, sorry. This is about what the Nazis used fluoride in the water to facilitate the concentration camps and the extermination of the Jews, and then we picked it up after that. And that somebody, who was it that
Harold
was?
Hodges.
Harold Hodges
Nuremberg.
was on Nuremberg trials involved.
So I'm an attorney, and I'm someone who's driven by documents. I need it in a document, okay? Until it's in a document, I can't do anything with it, okay? When I've been researching and investigating the fluoride issue since 2000, so about 24 years. Didn't expect that. But I heard that claim, and I was interested in that. I wanted to understand it, right? And I did everything I could to find documents that would support that the Nazis used fluoride in drinking water. Okay, because I know a lot of people believe it, and people say it. Okay, and based on, I did not find any reliable documentation for that. Okay, none. The basis of that claim is some 1 or 2 members, people coming back from Europe, who said it to other people in the United States when they came back from Europe. But that in law is what we would call hearsay. And I can't rely on that. So I personally do not find it credible, okay? But I welcome anybody to do that kind of shoe leather investigation. If someone presented me the document that proves it up, I'm all open to hearing it. Based on my investigation, I am not able to, I did not find that to be true. Harold Hodge was not part of the Nuremberg committee that I'm aware of, okay? But Harold Hodge, interestingly, did have some connections with the CIA. Make of that what you will.
Go ahead, that man in red there, so you can, at the top. Yeah.
Great film. Thanks for putting it together. I'm going to drop something here because there's probably some folks in the audience that will receive it and know what to do with it. Others will not have a clue. I worked with a gentleman who was with the Navy for 25 years. He was on a particular type of medication. This is not a fluoride drop, but it's germane to what the gentleman in Aqua asked 5 minutes ago. Why is the government doing what they do? He retired from the Navy. Before he did, he had to pick up a prescription he'd been on for many years at the Italian pharmacist. When he went in and picked up the prescription, the pill was literally physically half the size. And when he said, "I need the full prescription," the pharmacist assured him, "You got the full prescription." In the European Union, it's not legal for us to add the side effect chemistries. Okay? I think the gentleman knock was on point. This is part of a larger scheme to reduce the population.
Yeah, amen.
You can list 4 or 5 things that have happened recently. Shot, fluoride. I've got a screen print from a doctor who apparently was associated with some cancer outfit that said nothing causes cancer more quickly or effectively than fluoride. And that might be why you're drinking it. Final question. This is actually a question to Mr. Huffines. Mr. Huffines, you said a minute ago that Highland Park doesn't have the water. As the young lady indicated here a minute ago, she listed 8 or 10 cities. Most of us are getting the water from the same place. How's Highland Park getting it out?
You know, that's a very good question. Highland Park has an owed water contract. So they adjudicated water rights when Lake Grapevine was constructed in the 30s. It's a very old town. So they pipe their water in directly from Lake Grapevine and treat it themselves. So they don't buy water from Dallas, and they don't buy it from North Texas or Upper Trinity. Upper Trinity is the Denton County, North Texas is more Collin County, and then Dallas provides a lot of water for the Dallas County region. So there's difference. Arlington would be different. You know, the Trinity River Authority is a little bit different. So.
And then they don't add it.
They don't add it, yeah. I mean, it's all added, generally. I mean, there might be some natural fluoride in there, but I'm sure Michael could answer, but it's all an additive. They bring in dump trucks of this stuff, dump trucks. And look, for me, if somebody wants to put it on their bread and their cereal in the morning, get after it. I mean, that's just fine. But don't force it down the throats of every citizen in this country or this state. This is crazy.
You got a question over here?
Here.
Hi, I would just like to note that Highland Park is where all the doctors and the dentists and the attorneys live. So, and I'm not picking on them, I'm just asking, were they able to vote no fluoride? And if they did vote, is it because they know what it's doing to people's...
I can't answer that question. I do not know. As far as I know, my history wouldn't go back that far. I don't know why they didn't add it. Maybe they were just cheap and didn't want to spend the money. I don't know. It would have been luck.
Can I tell you?
Oh, Regina knows. Regina.
Let me tell you. I've talked to them. Okay.
Okay, Regina knows.
Want me to do this? Okay. Yeah. Okay, they still get the same source water. They decided a long time ago not to add the fluoride to the water. And to this day, they still haven't. So it's the fact that they chose not to, and they do their own water. So there you go. There you go.
They were more.
We'll be up here.
Hi. Sorry, I was told to talk like 5 minutes ago. I'm sorry. I have a question for you. Be super brief. Based on the fact that Rachel, head of HHS, is trying to temper the release of the report, how do you move the case along? What's going to happen now with the case?
So, good question. When I found out that the report had been blocked, right, we immediately went into discovery mode in the case, okay? And we got a copy of the report, and that was really because we had a trial earlier this year, where really the focus of the trial was that report. So that has kind of made it harder for the NTP now to just not do anything, right? So I can report that the NTP is in the process of moving forward with this. They're not, officially they still intend to publish it, but it's what?
75 years?
Well, it's over 2 years since they were done with it. They still haven't released it. So I can't say they will publish it, but I understand that there is an intention for them to release this. And when they release it, that's a very significant and historic moment, because I think it's fair to say that when the United States began fluoridating its water in 1945, that wasn't part of the benefit of the bargain that this chemical reduces IQ. Do you think we would have added this to the water if we knew this is a chemical that lowers IQ?
But can you push the court to push them forward?
Well, the court, I can say that the court, we actually, the whole litigation has served as a leverage point on the NTP to push them forward. So the lawsuit has had a beneficial effect, because the judge would like make these comments and he's here like, what's happening with the NTP report? Like, what's going on? Like, there was like, so the court case was like a pressure point, because the NTP knew they were being overseen by the judge, right? So I think it was the overall, but now the case is effectively complete. So there's, so we're now waiting on the judge's decision. Okay, we're waiting on the judge's decision. But I do think that the NTP process was, that the court case helped put pressure on the NTP in a beneficial way.
Be sure the report has not been altered.
Well, we will find
Could
out.
you
when it-
repeat the question?
How can you be sure? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, we know, okay, the question was how, if the NTP report is ultimately published, which is an if, how will we know the report has not been altered? Well, we will know because we were able to force the NTP to give us copies of the May 2022 document, so we have that. By the way, I love that there's so many questions. This is great.
Well, okay, yes, ma'am.
What are the prospects for a class action lawsuit for damages? I have hypothyroidism. My father had it. I have bone on both knees.
So, good question, and I'm an attorney, so I need to put my restraints on to not get super legally wonky, okay? Because it could become really boring, okay? But class action lawsuits have certain rules to them that make it tricky to have a class action for health effects. And so you're really more limited to personal injury actions on an individual basis. And so I would say that there's legal rules that make the cases challenging, but that's not to say that they won't and can't happen.
Let's go back upstairs there. Okay, right there, yes.
Okay, and there is one so-called positive effect, and that is the whitening of teeth. However, if fluoride embrittleizes the bones, it embrittleizes the teeth as well. Not only that, in the fluid that they inject or put into the mouth, it is probably far more densely concentrated fluoride than any water that we would ever drink, and a good portion of that undoubtedly is being absorbed in the flesh in the mouth and going into our system. There is no good reason for fluoride at all. This whitening of the teeth is BS.
So, and fluoride ingestion does cause this condition called dental fluorosis, which causes this white splotching and staining of the teeth. And the thing, I'll give a little side story here on this, okay? And fluoride was a massive liability to the largest industries in this country in the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, 1960s. In those 4 decades, there was no chemical in this country that caused more litigation and damage claims against the largest industries in this country than fluoride. Talking about Alcoa, Reynolds, U.S. Steel, fertilizer companies, and the bomb program. And why do I raise that? Because fluoride had one major disadvantage to large industry. When you release it into the air, and you have cows nearby, the cows eat the grass. And they get too much fluoride in their system, and guess what happens? Their teeth show fluorosis, which is a staining of the teeth, and then the teeth fall out. The cow's teeth would fall out, and the cows would become crippled, and they would walk on their elbows, okay? And why is that? The reason why that was so problematic for industry is it is a fingerprint.
Yeah.
It is a fingerprint. There's only one thing that's going to cause cows to walk on their elbows and have their teeth fall out. It's fluoride. So you had communities across this country suing these industries saying, hey, stop poisoning our cattle, and by the way, our vegetation as well, and our health. So fluoride was a nightmare for the largest industries. I want to emphasize that. Largest, most politically powerful industries in this country, okay? And that what we don't, and I didn't talk about that in this film, but that's a significant fact because it was those industries that for decades funded study after study after study after study that gave fluoride a clean bill of health, a clean bill of health, a clean bill of health. So how did we get here? Why do we have 70% of Americans drinking fluoridated water? Because we have a science, this body of science that was corrupted by corporations and government that both had the same problem. Because the US bomb program plants were poisoning the communities, the downwind communities, the downstream communities, right? And these aluminum plants and steel plants and fertilizer plants were also poisoning the downwind communities. And so you had government scientists and industry scientists literally working together to fund the science on fluoride that now informs what the public health community understands about fluoride.
Also, I'd like to say that all the C-suites from almost all the media, print, air, TV, radio, they're controlled by the government too, almost 100%, and they have been for years. That's why you don't get investigative reporters. You got a lot of good investigative reporters out there that go do the story, take it upstairs, never gets printed, never going to be heard from again. And so the government, when our media comes out with the exact same stories all the time, including Fox News, including CBS, NBC, and everything else. So don't think that this isn't premeditated on covering up this stuff, because it is by the media. Otherwise, we would have known something about it. Somebody would have questioned the fact that they're poisoning us.
Can I ask, do we have a reporter here? If we do, can you stand up and we give him a big applause?
Thank you.
Carry on.
Any other questions up there
Got a
about the
question over there
report?
on that
Where do you
side.
want to take one? Okay, over there.
Hi, this is for Serena. This is my concise question. Who's getting paid? Who owns the fluoride and who's selling it to whoever?
It's the $1 million question, or probably a lot more than that. But it's so my answer to this is not that straightforward. Okay, and I should say a couple things. One is I just talked about the industries, right? These big industries. I always think about the politics, and I have to bifurcate. I have to say I understand the politics of fluoride very well in the beginning, in 1930s, 1940s, 1950s. I know the politics there because I have documents. Okay, I'm an attorney. I like the documents. I have them for that period. I have a lot. Okay, and industry was very involved. Okay. But today is a little different because you don't have the Alcoas and the Reynolds and these big industries with the same fluoride pollution problems. They largely dealt with them, okay, after they being sued the millionth time, okay? So their interest, I don't see them having as much involvement as they did back in the day. So who might be involved, okay? And it's not an easy, I don't have the documents to really tell me the answers on that. So I'm left more in a position of reasonable speculation, if you will, okay? So I'll just offer a few things, and this is really something where I encourage, I haven't gotten there, but that doesn't mean someone else can. I hope someone does the more, shoe leather investigation to figure that out. But I think there's a few important components to the politics today. One is the basic notion that these agencies like the CDC that have been promoting it so absolutely for so long that it's hard for them to change course, right? If you've told the public this is absolutely safe, won't harm anybody, not a single person will ever be harmed by this. That's the position they've had for 70 years. So how do you turn around and change that, right? So there's that component that it should not be lost in this, right? But then who else might be? And I would offer one industry that has been lurking in the shadows of the fluoride issue for the full, certainly in the old days, and I suspect they're still interested. And that is the sugar industry, okay? If your industry creates cavities, in the teeth. And you don't want the government to take away your product, right? Well, it sure is nice to have some industrial pixie dust that you can sprinkle in the water and act like you're dealing with the problem, right? Don't look at us. Oh, look at this wonderful fluoride in the water. Oh, look, it's all taken care of, right? So you have that component, and we have documents showing that the sugar industry was intimately involved with fluoride research for the first few decades at least. Okay, so there's that factor. And then you have, I think, the dental trade associations, the American Dental Association. Don't get me started on the ADA. The ADA is so aggressive in literally forcing fluoride down our throats, okay? But they say, oh, look at us dentists. We're putting ourselves out of business by preventing cavities, by adding the pixie dust in the water, okay? Well, no dentists are going out of business that I can see from treating teeth, okay? But it overlooks, dentists, the American Dental Association fights tooth and nail. No pun intended. They fight tooth and nail, state after state, year after year, to prevent any ability to have low-cost dental providers come into communities to treat people in need. People whose only option for dental care is to go to the emergency room because they have a tooth decay that's abscessing and they have an infection that's serious because they can't afford dentists, okay? But the Dental Association fights against the ability to have low-cost dental providers to provide care. And so, because it's a monopoly, it's a whole monopoly. And so, put pixie dust in the water, and that looks like you're dealing with the problem, right? Don't deal with our monopoly. Put some chemical in the water. I think that's a factor that needs to be reckoned with. That does go back to the very beginning. But I should add the qualifier here. I'm an attorney. I like my documents, right? I don't have current documents, right, on this. So I can't speak with any authority on the political interests behind why they're so emphatic in promoting this. Because I do wonder, I've been studying this for 24 years, okay? I wish I had a better answer, I wish I did. But I wonder, I think to myself, wait a second, the stuff doesn't need to be swallowed, okay? Adding it to water which we drink, it's now a neurotoxicant that lowers IQ. It causes likely thyroid disease. Why are we doing this to ourselves anymore? Why are we still adding it to water when you don't need to swallow it, right? So it's like a legitimate question that I'm scratching my head over, right? Like, why are we still doing it?
Got a question over here. 3 items. What water filters can we buy that effectively take fluoride out so we can take care of ourselves, number 1. Number 2, because we're in World War III, other countries are adding to their nuclear warhead arsenal. I've seen an entry on the Department of Energy website talking that there are more plutonium pits now being added to the nuclear stockpile of the US. I don't know if fluoride is used in plutonium production, but just like it was with uranium, but you might look at that to see if there is fluoride being produced or put in the water because of that. That was number 2. Number 3, a little good news. It's on a subject not on fluoride but tangential. It's on gain of function research, the Texas GOP platform. We were able to add information, gain of function accountability 2 years ago. Beth Biesel, who's done so many good things, has added that 2 years ago. And then I and others helped to add to that. We urge the legislature to authorize the Attorney General and appropriate law enforcement agencies to investigate and prosecute for treason and murder any and all participants who knowingly release biological weapons or vaccines that cause harm. So that was some good news that everyone needs to hear.
So let me address your first question, which is the filters, and I can give very clear guidance on this. Your pure filter, your Brita filter, they use activated carbon, okay? They do not remove fluoride, okay? One of the problems with adding fluoride to the water is you need more advanced filtration systems to remove it. So Pure and Brita do not remove fluoride, okay? To remove fluoride, you need to use reverse osmosis systems or activated alumina systems, or distillation will remove it. So you have distillation units will remove it completely. Distillation will remove everything, okay? Even the good stuff does, so you've got to keep that in mind. And then there are some ion exchange systems that can remove it, but if you're looking for like a sink-based filtration system, reverse osmosis and activated alumina, you would need one of those two for it to remove it, okay? Otherwise, go for a distillation unit, which you can get like countertop distillation units.
I think we're gonna have a last question here, and then everyone else, if you still have questions, you can buy Mike a drink over at the Londoner and talk to him.
Maybe a late night.
Here's our last question, and then we'll see who had the best question.
Thank you so much for all that you've done. It's appreciated greatly. Have there been any other studies on fluoride and the effects on people other than what we were talking about tonight?
So I'm glad you asked this, because I wanted to just mention this. So one of the things that this film talks about that we didn't get into in any detail is this notion of human experiments, okay? Because in the 1990s, as I mentioned in the film, it came to light that the government had done these radiation experiments on people. Patients get in a car crash, go to the hospital, injected with plutonium, followed for the rest of their life unknowingly. They didn't know they were being monitored by scientists to understand if their health was adversely affected by the plutonium or the uranium. Okay, that is now known, it's undisputed. But what has never been discussed and never really been the subject of investigation is, were they doing a similar type of thing with fluoride? Because fluoride, as we talked about, was a process chemical for the bomb program. Scientists were keenly interested to understand how fluoride was affecting the workers' health and the community's health, just like they wanted to understand plutonium and uranium. So logically, there's no reason why they wouldn't have done these studies on fluoride. And I have, in fact, in my documents, come across examples and things that strongly suggest that there was human experimentation going on fluoride, okay? That was never publicly disclosed. And I think it's a subject of that really needs to be better understood. What were they doing? What did they learn? And I'll give you a couple of examples, okay? A couple of examples of what I have seen. Harold Hodge, who talked about, there I have a transcript where he's talking with other scientists about fluoride. And one of the guys is a doctor at the baby hospital in New York City. And the doctor said that he was giving a baby 10 milligrams of fluoride a day, which is a cruel level of fluoride to give a baby. It's extremely high. And the doctor said that he was observing skeletal fluorosis develop in the baby's bones. Skeletal fluorosis is a permanent, can be a crippling disorder, right? So the doctor was observing skeletal fluorosis in this baby, okay? Harold Hodge's response upon learning of this information wasn't, why are you poisoning this kid? What's going on? That's wrong. Harold Hodge was, that's extremely interesting. Have you considered doing basal metabolism tests on the baby? Because basal metabolism would be to understand the thyroid effects. Harold Hodge like, oh, this is a great opportunity to study the thyroid effects. So that's one study, okay, never published. Another is, in Massachusetts, you had these schools of orphans, okay? And that was the thing back then. And orphans were actually the subject of a lot of biomedical testing. There's a book called Against Their Will, which is all about how we tested on orphans all these drugs, okay? And sure enough, in the 1950s, There was this one school official, Florence something, I forget her last name, and she found out that this one school of orphans was fluoridating its water secretly, not publicly disclosed. And it was part of an experiment where they were comparing against another school that was not fluoridating its water, never publicly disclosed. So why were they doing that? What was this study on? And actually that school was a school of developmentally disabled kids. They were actually mentally, they had intellectual disabilities. So why were they studying the effects of fluoridated water on children who had intellectual disabilities? Why didn't they disclose that to the public? Why is there no studies published on that? Right? And I'll give you one more example of a human experiment. Cancer patients, 1940s, New York City. An army doctor, just came back from the war, was leading a study where he was injecting these patients with up to 10 milligrams per kilogram per day of fluoride, which is an extremely dangerous level of fluoride. It's the level of fluoride that will easily kill people, not in dispute. It was purportedly to understand whether this would be like a chemotherapy type drug, okay? But it's the kind of study that smacks of another, like, government involvement, okay? And one of the girls who got it, oh, guess what? She died. Surprise, right? She died within a couple of months of receiving this treatment. But the author assures us that it was not because of the fluoride dosing. But, I think that there is, a real need to understand what they did. What did they do? Why did they do it? What did they find? And why did they not share it with the public? So that's for another day.
Okay.
Oh, let's give it up for Michael right here. A true expert. He's devoted 24 years to set you free. Also, I'd like to recognize Regina right here, Regina Amberza. She has worked so hard on this issue. Thank you, Regina. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, Michael, for coming to Texas, coming to Dallas, and thank you for all that you've done.
Okay,
you got a closing remark real quick.
Well, thank you, everyone, for coming. I really enjoyed this, and for those who can stay and come to the Londoner, I'm happy to answer questions that weren't asked and answered today. Thank you.
We have a second screening over at the Londoner. It's a short 20-minute musical called Plandemic, the musical, and it's really fun and uplifting. It was really, really hard to pick a winner tonight. Your questions are really good, to the point. We feel like we should have asked what at the water ban, but I think we're going to go with your right. You had just a couple of words. Where's the money come? Congratulations. You win 2 tickets to the Faith and Freedom fundraiser. Charlie Kurt, Laura Logan, Michael Flynn, August 2nd. You'll be at a table with all really good conversationalists because they all ask great questions. We're at the patio on the Londoner. We'll have a little buffet going. It's the buffet with a little donation hat at the end of it. Easy to pick out. Okay, thanks so much, Michael and Don.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.